As Jesus moved on from there, he saw a man called Matthew sitting at the tax booth. Jesus called to him, "Follow me." He got up and followed Jesus. While Jesus was eating at Matthew's home, many tax collectors and sinners came and sat down at the table with Jesus and his disciples. When the Pharisees saw this, they asked Jesus' disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" When Jesus heard the question, he replied, "Those who are well don't need a doctor, but sick people do. Go and discover what this means. I want mercy, not sacrifice. For I didn't come to call those who do what's right. I came to call sinners." Then the disciples of John came and asked, "Why is that we and the Pharisees fast frequently, but your disciples don't?" Jesus answered, "Do wedding guests mourn while the bridegroom is with them? But the time is coming when the bridegroom will be taken from them, and then they will fast. No one puts a new patch on old clothes, otherwise it will shrink and make the tear worse. No one puts new wine in old wineskins either, otherwise the wineskins will burst, spilling the wine and ruining the wineskins. No, new wine is put into new wineskins, and both last." Peter was traveling around and went to visit the believers who lived in Lydda. There he met a man called Aeneas, who was paralyzed and had been confined to his bed for 8 years. Peter told him, "Aeneas, Jesus Christ heals you. Get up and pick up your mat." Immediately, Aeneas got up. Everyone living in Lydda and Sharon saw him and became believers in the Lord. In Joppa lived a follower called Tabitha, Dorcas in Greek. She was always doing good and helping the poor. However, about this time she became sick and died. After washing her body, they laid her out in an upstairs room. Lydda was near Joppa, so the disciples in Joppa, hearing that Peter was in Lydda, sent 2 men to him with a message, "Please come to us right away." So Peter got ready and left with them. When he arrived, they took him upstairs. All the widows were there crying, and they showed him the coats and clothes that Dorcas had made while she was with them. Peter told them all to leave, kneeled down, and prayed. He turned to the body and said, "Tabitha, get up." She opened her eyes, and when she saw Peter, she sat up. He took her by the hand and lifted her up. He called in the believers and the widows and presented her to them alive. The news spread through the whole of Joppa, and many believed in the Lord. Peter spent a long time in Joppa, staying at the house of Simon the tanner. A Psalm of David. The earth is the Lord's, and everything that is in it belongs to him. The world is his, and everyone who lives there. For he is the one who laid its foundations on the seas, setting it in place on the waters. Who is allowed to go up the Lord's mountain? Who is permitted to stand in his holy place? Those who have clean hands and pure minds, who don't worship idols, and who don't lie under oath. They will take with them the blessing of the Lord, vindicated by the God who saves them. These are the kind of people who may go to the Lord and worship before you, God of Jacob. Open up, you gates. Swing wide, you ancient doors. Let the King of glory come in. Who is this King of glory? The Lord, strong and powerful, mighty in battle. Open up, you gates. Swing wide, you ancient doors. Let the King of glory come in. Who is this King of glory? The Lord Almighty. He is the King of glory. People don't condemn a thief if he steals to satisfy himself when he's hungry. But if he's caught, he has to pay back 7 times what he stole, even if it means handing over everything he has in his house. Any man who commits adultery with a woman has no sense. He who does so destroys himself. He will be wounded and dishonored. His disgrace will never be removed. For jealousy makes a husband furious, and he won't hold back when he takes revenge. He refuses any compensation and won't be paid off, however big the amount. These were the names of the sons of Israel, Jacob, who came with him to Egypt along with their families: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan and Naphtali, Gad and Asher. Jacob had 70 descendants there, including Joseph, who was already in Egypt. Eventually Joseph and all his brothers and all that generation died. However, The Israelites had many children, and their numbers increased rapidly. In fact, there were so many of them that they became very powerful. The country was full of them. Then a new king came to power who didn't know anything about Joseph. He conferred with his fellow Egyptians and said, "Look at these Israelites. There are more of them than us, and they're more powerful than us. Let's deal wisely with them before they become so many that if there's a war, they'll side with our enemies and fight us and flee the country." So the Egyptians made them do forced labor and put taskmasters in charge of them. They used them to build the storage towns of Pithom and Ramesses. But the more the Israelites were mistreated, the more they grew in numbers and spread out, and the more the Egyptians detested them. The Egyptians worked the Israelites brutally, making their lives a misery. They made them do hard labor, building with mortar and brick and all kinds of heavy work in the fields. In all of this hard labor, they treated them brutally. Then the king gave orders to the Hebrew midwives, Shiphrah and Puah. He told them, "When you assist the Hebrew women during childbirth, if you see it's a boy, kill him. But if it's a girl, let her live." But because the midwives revered God, they didn't do what the king of Egypt had ordered. They let the boys live as well. The king of Egypt called the midwives in and demanded to know, "Why have you done this, letting the male children live?" "Hebrew women aren't like Egyptian women," the midwives told Pharaoh. "They give birth more easily. They have them before we midwives arrive." God treated the midwives well, and the people increased in number, so there were even more of them. Because the midwives revered God, he gave them families of their own. Then Pharaoh issued this order to all his people: "Throw every Hebrew boy that's born into the Nile, but let every girl live." It was around this time that a man from the tribe of Levi married a woman, also a Levite. She became pregnant and had a son. She saw he was a lovely baby, and she hid him for 3 months. But when she couldn't hide him anymore, she got a papyrus basket and covered it with tar and pitch. Then she put her baby in the basket and placed it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. His sister waited some distance away, keeping an eye on him. Then Pharaoh's daughter arrived to bathe in the Nile. Her ladies in waiting were walking along the bank of the river. When she saw the basket among the reeds, she sent her maid to get it and bring it to her. When she opened it, she saw the baby boy. He was crying, and she felt sorry for him. "This must be one of the Hebrew boys," she said. His sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, "Would you like me to go and find one of the Hebrew women to nurse him for you?" "Yes, go and do that," she replied. So the girl went and called the baby's mother to come. "Take this baby boy and nurse him for me," Pharaoh's daughter told his mother. "I will pay you myself." So his mother took him home and nursed him. When the boy was older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, who adopted him as her son. She called him Moses because she said, "I pulled him out of the water." Later, when Moses had grown up, he went to visit his people, the Hebrews. He saw them doing hard labor. He also saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his own people. He looked all around to make sure no one was watching, and then he killed the Egyptian and buried his body in the sand. The following day, he went back and he saw 2 Hebrews fighting with each other. He said to the one at fault, "Why are you beating one of your own people? Who put you in charge to judge us?" The man replied, "Are you going to kill me like you did the Egyptian?" Moses became frightened at this and said to himself, "People know what I've done." When Pharaoh found out, he tried to have Moses killed, but Moses ran away from Pharaoh and went to live in Midian. One day, as he was sitting by a well, the Midianite priest's 7 daughters came to fetch water to fill up the troughs so their father's flock could drink. Some shepherds arrived and chased them off, but Moses intervened and rescued them and watered their flock. When they got home, their father Reuel asked them, "How did you get back so quickly today?" "An Egyptian rescued us from some shepherds who attacked us," they replied. "Then he even fetched water for us so the flock could drink." "So where is he?" Reuel asked his daughters. "You didn't just leave him there, did you? Go and invite him to eat with us." Moses agreed to stay with the man, who arranged for his daughter Zipporah to marry Moses. She had a son, and Moses named him Gershom, for he said, "I'm an exile living in a foreign country." Years later, the king of Egypt died, but the Israelites were still groaning under their hard labor. Their cries for help because of their hardship reached God. God heard their groans, and recalled his agreement with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. God also looked sympathetically on the Israelites and was concerned for them.